All right, so you know how most YouTube advice just really sounds correct and it feels like you're doing the responsible thing, and then you do it and then nothing changes? Yeah, we have data about why that is now, which is amazing. We actually know why. Because this $10,000 report that went over 300,000 viral YouTube videos, like across what 50,000 channels, more than 60 billion views. So not a small sample size. Just a giant amount of successful video data. And what stood out wasn't like some new hack or tactic. What stood out, at least to me, is a lot of the advice that we've been following for who knows even how long now, what we've been told to optimize for, that shows up in this data as underperforming, which awesome, right? And that would be why the advice has been backfiring. And it's not because people are stupid, and it's not because the gurus have all been lying to you and trying to pull the ladder up after them after they've achieved their success. And I think it's just because YouTube does not reward what feels logical. Which honestly, if you think about it, makes sense. Because are people at their core logical? They are not. And once you kind of understand that and see where the advice breaks, a lot of a lot of this just starts falling into place. A lot of it really makes sense. Big shout out to one of 10. I'll put their information down in the description for all of this data. It is massively informative, and the breakdown of it is incredible. Just absolutely adore it. Now, I think I'm gonna go through this report with a fine-tooth comb in a live stream, maybe tomorrow, or I guess today. I don't know if I can figure out a good time to do it. I'll go ahead and schedule that. So look out for it on the channel. Before we really dive in, I want to be super clear. I'm not going to be running a hit piece on. I'm not going to be naming any names at all. I am not ranting, although I might get a little animated at times because I mean this is exciting. I get excited at data, and this is a lot of good data. And it's a lot of data that's contrary to what we knew or what we thought we knew, which is even more exciting. So I'm a little pumped right now. And yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I haven't followed a lot of this advice, which I'm not going to rant about that. But yeah, I definitely have. For pretty much the entire time I've been on the platform, some of this advice I've been following. But one thing that's important to understand is the report doesn't say just do the opposite of everything you've been told, because it's not all bad. What it actually shows is that we tend to, as creators, optimize for things that are easy to explain and control, and that is not what YouTube rewards. That's not what people say the audience is the algorithm, and that's not something the algorithm and thus the audience rewards. And that mismatch shows up everywhere in the data, just all through it. So one pattern that keeps repeating across the report is that, like I said, creators optimize for what's easy and what they can control. They optimize for efficiency, they optimize for clarity, they optimize for completeness, which makes sense. That feels responsible, that feels logical. But what it turns out YouTube rewards is stuff that compounds attention and stuff that doesn't take a lot of thought, but what they refer to in the report as low cognitive effort, and stuff that gives momentum over time. And those aren't the same things. And in fact, when you really think about it, it makes a lot of the popular advice feel sort of backwards. So let's start with one that everyone has been arguing about. I was in a workshop recently, and someone asked the like I said, I'm not going to be naming any names or doing any hit pieces on anyone, but someone asked straight up, what is the most optimal YouTube length? And without hesitation, the person answered 14 minutes and 59 seconds. Did not offer an explanation, although I made some logical leaps in my mind as to why. But yeah, that is for advice on how long to make a video. That's long. Most advice is even to keep it shorter than that. Like you want to get to 8 minutes, so you get that mid-roll ad, and that's basically it. You want to use as little time as you can because the time that the viewer is giving you is precious. They are giving you that time, and you need to be as efficient and use as little of it as you can and give them as much value as possible, and yada, 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 yada. The advice is everywhere, and honest to God, it sounds right. Shorter feels tighter, and it does feel more respectful to the viewer, and by God, that is easier to make shorter videos. And it's really easy to convince yourself that you're just being strategic with this, but when you look at the study for videos that are under an hour, peak performance is between 18 and 24 minutes. 52% of videos are less than 12 minutes. And, oh gosh, where did that number go? 52% are less than 12 minutes. And so when you're looking at under 15 minutes, that's a good majority of the videos. You're at a majority of the videos before 12. And you don't even start seeing good performance versus the length of the video until 16. 14 and 16 start to look good. 18 through 24 look great for, for median views versus duration versus percentage. So just your ratio is really good there. So yeah, that's not small. That's not a small difference. And this isn't about like padding your content. We're talking, so watch time compounds once someone commits. Once someone decides they're in for a penny, they're in for a pound. That's why when you see that retention graph, it's always, you've got that sharp drop off, and then generally a very slight gradual decline from there on. So what that's telling me is that you're still getting that sharp drop off with the 18 minutes, but you retain 30-40% through an 18-minute video. That's way better than what you're getting from a 6-minute video or whatnot, an 8-minute video. And here's the part that really, really messed with me, although, I remember early on seeing something from, I believe it was Think Media, and this isn't a hit, this is a compliment, where they talked about, Sean talked about content marathons, like taking a bunch of your content and stringing it together and making a long video. But talked about stringing a bunch of those together in like these hour-long marathon videos. And now we have actual data that shows that, yeah, that's good. Videos over an hour long, like 30 to 60 minutes is not great. Like, aim for not that. Aim for, your 18 to 24-ish. Or if you can get up to 90, in the 90 to 3 hour range, those do amazing. Which is just not something any of the productivity advice really prepared me for. So another really common piece of advice is clarity in your title. Like, obviously, don't go so far as to get your title truncated, to get your title cut off. But yeah, you pack the title with something that sounds natural, that doesn't go over what the 70 characters or the 60 characters, whatever it is, where things cut off. You add context, use your title to really explain what's going on, use keywords. But that's not what the report shows does well. The report shows that titles longer than 6 words perform worse. Now, educational content gets a little bit more leeway here. But entertainment content, yeah, you go over 6 words or 30 characters, and it is just so fast you go down. Massive amount of potential clicks just gone. Which is really annoying because the longer titles, as long as the entire title shows up, feels more responsible. It feels like you're doing it right. But again, we're going to keep coming back to this. The data makes this clear. Is clarity is not the same thing as ease. Ease is the name of the game. That is what the data shows us. Every extra word increases the amount a person has to think about it. Increases their cognitive load. And the brain has to actually do work to decide. And the brain doesn't want to do work. It's not going to reward you making the viewer hesitate. You make them hesitate, they're just going to scroll past you. Hesitation kills momentum. So anyway, time out. Quick question. I'm generally curious about this. What piece of YouTube guru advice were you absolutely certain was going to make a huge difference in your channel, and you put it in and then just crickets, just nothing? We can have like a little group therapy session down in the comment section. It'll be fun. So thumbnails are where this report like really starts delivering the gut punches. Think about how you've been told to design your thumbnails. 84% of thumbnails on YouTube have text. That's right, you see mostly text, right? Yeah. Thumbnails with text get about 19% fewer views on average. That's nearly 20%. So that means that thumbnails without text get nearly 25% more views on average. That is insane. That is not a subtle difference. That's not small. That is huge. And I've never made a thumbnail without words in it before, which is silly now that I think about it. I have a review channel. Really, one of my best performing videos as far as clicks is concerned is just the word "how" with me looking at the case. That should have tipped me off. They see my expression, even the word "how." I guess that's probably not really doing a lot of work, because they see me looking confused, looking at a case. They're like, huh. They don't have to think about it. They know what's going on there. I'm confused about that case for some reason. So yeah, the data shows that thumbnails perform best when there's little to no text. You have to let the image do the storytelling. The title is what explains it, but of course you want to be short there too. You don't want to let the person actually think about it. You want to stop the scroll with the picture. That you want them to understand what they're looking at immediately with the title, and then they'll click. That's what you're doing. The least amount of thought from A to B to C, where C stands for click. Hey, look at that. Look at that. I didn't even plan that. And then even when you do have text in the thumbnail, you want it to be like 7% of the frame, which, let's see if I can do this. If I was 7%, it would be like maybe that much looking at the frame. Right around. That's not a lot. That is not a lot. Because I mean, the viewers don't want information. They don't want to think. Reading while scrolling is friction. They will just skip past it. Recognition beats interpretation, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They need to be able to subconsciously parse what's happening and understand it. They don't. If you make them consciously think about it, you've lost them. They've already moved on to the next thing in their scroll. And then now we're going to kick a bunch of the thumbnail creation advice straight in the giblets. Bases and thumbnails doesn't really make a difference. I mean, it depends on niche. Some it makes a little bit of a difference. Some it tanks you a little bit, but all in all, pretty average across the board, which is crazy because I from the beginning I remember being told you have one face, one object, one background, and like 4 words or less. That's your thumbnail. But it turns out one face performs a little bit worse than no faces, and definitely worse than more than one face. Like 2, 3, and 4 all perform better than 1 or none, which is wild. But now that I think about it, it's like when you have 2, that's generally like you're interviewing someone or there's some sort of conflict being shown. So that's kind of interesting. I can see why that would be now that I actually give it some conscious thought. And then also dark, moody thumbnails. The color of the words. My first thought was like, oh yeah, but people love doing like and I love doing this too. The one word of one color, the other word of red. But yeah, it's not saying that like red text. It's the dominant color. Is these blues and these yellows and these greens, possibly this bright orange. I would have liked to have seen data on text colors and whether or not that differentiated anything, but alas, we don't have it. Or if they do have it, they didn't share it. So, and I've God, so many of my thumbnails are so dark, and I mean they look great when I'm looking at them as a picture, but now I think about it, they're gonna blend into dark mode, and I mean they might look good on their own, but they just get skipped. Green and cyan and yellow, they pop. They're gonna get noticed. They make your brain go, huh, look at that. So I guess now that the cat's out of the bag on that, we'll see how long that actually lasts. Because you can mark my words here, as this becomes more widespread information, you're going to see a sea of cyan and yellow and green and orange thumbnails, like dominantly those. So hey, maybe we'll see the pendulum swing back the other way, where the ones that overperform are the ones that stand out against those. So we'll see. Makes logical sense, but who knows? The pattern keeps repeating. Ease. Lower effort for the viewer, higher performance. So yeah, let's just take a step back and answer the title of this video directly. Why does so much YouTube guru advice backfire? And again, it's because that advice is optimized for control. Short videos are easier to plan, and long titles feel thorough, and text-heavy thumbnails that just feels informative. Like not a whole bunch of words, but you make the text as big as possible so you can read it on mobile. That's what we're told all the time, and that just feels logical. It feels like you're doing it right, and feeling like you're doing something right is a hell of a drug. But YouTube does not reward feeling like you're doing it right. It doesn't reward effort. It rewards momentum. So momentum comes from sustained attention, easy decision making, and minimal friction. You want someone to just kind of slide into your video without even really giving it much of a thought, and then just kind of, they're there, and then you kind of keep them there. And that's great. The report's not saying that creators are lazy and dumb. It just, the report shows that our instincts are mismatched with, I mean, the reality of the human condition. Which is to say they're mismatched with the audience, which means, again, the audience is the algorithm, so they're mismatched with the algorithm. And we all worship the algorithm here. So yeah, anyway, if you found this video helpful, this breakdown, please do hit me with that subscribe. It helps, well, you probably know that it helps a whole lot, but, you know, it helps maybe even more than you know there. If you've ever felt stuck despite doing everything right, this report gives you your explanation. The problem usually is an effort. It is the direction of your effort. This video preempted what was going to be the beginning of a videography, like how to set up camera to shoot YouTube arc. Assuming that's still what's coming next, that'll be here. So once you understand what the platform actually rewards, and now we have some good data showing what it does, a lot of that pressure disappears, and that makes the work simpler. So really, that's the real takeaway here. So, oh, feel good about that.